All right, there was a guy who came out to my strawberry farm, a month ago, and he was wanted me to do this video. I'm trapped in an odd time loop bubble where people will show up and say I'm about to do something, and then I'll do it. And when they say you can't mess up the future, well, it's like I'm not the only person where people come and talk to somebody about something they're going to do, which leads to a great amount of confusion a lot of the time. But it's like the ability of the person to talk about what the other person's going to do is fluxing based off of all of the energy of the universe of potentiality. It's very interesting. So they are limited in what they can say, and then they'll have these extreme polar detractions in their brain where like they start becoming bipolar and they start getting extremely happy and extremely negative at the same time and feeling that schism. Now, I declare that religion is just teaching you stories about the real truth of science, and so I think the fruit that made Adam and Eve understand good and evil was just that. They were living off of instincts that were becoming corrupted by repeat behaviors that were partially incorrect, that weren't fully functional, and bacteriums that would start to develop and cause them to do things that were imperfect, separate from what keeps their health and the health of things around them up, like modern humanity, how they made an art form out of fighting back against nature and creating bad energy, bad everything, bacteria. Like, and with it comes that negativity of the polar bipolar behavior in everybody's brains that's hiding in there. So, um people who are aware of this and are trained in specific ways because of their beliefs supporting it as well, like Christianity, and in this case, um, you have um, astrology. So astronomy, it's like they took two extremes. Astronomy is just looking at mathematical figures of what you think is happening based on light data you're picking up from your sensors, right? And there's zero desire to hypothesize about the possibility that life is abundant and interconnected, even out into space and between the stars. They have a reluctance, a bipolar negative aspect. And then on the other extreme, you have this is just what humanity does, like as an energy consensus as a whole. And then there's the people who believe the other extremes and don't worry as much about the scientific mathematics with their astrology. Now, astrology will state that certain planets are in certain locations, and that'll affect people's mood swings, their fertility, their energy levels, various different things. And they kind of have these hard evidences of collected data, like Farmer's Star Almanac, and then they kind of breed it into their presumptions, right, about how everything was working and is still working. Now, it's a bit limited, but it does tell you some data, and I'm going to explain why. Because they're looking at it from the positive aspect, like there is energy and movement that has purpose because it's multiple energies interacting. Instead of just viewing everything as emptiness, as if you can only fixate on the emptiness. It's within everybody. The Cancer, right? The Virgo, these different words have different meanings, impetuses within the human hormones, even. So, when I said I had severe sickle cell blood cancer and then it healed, let's look at this from not just the aspect of extreme math, but also extreme divergence from mathematical equations that you can believe in, and embracing new ones that are possibilities beyond our current understanding. That's the compromise we need to reach, you see? Because let's watch this video now that I've said all of this.
Sponsored by Look at this giant donut-shaped region far away from Earth, beyond the orbit of Neptune. We're talking about a distance of more than 2.5 billion miles.
Is this the right video?
It's the Kuiper Belt, and something eerie and bizarre is happening there. Dwarf planets and other small objects dwelling there refuse to cluster together. Instead, they follow particular orbits, which is weird. The reason might be a large
Now, if they'll show it,
and everything that goes around it because of the stars Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. There are also smaller things like moons, asteroids, and Pluto. For a long time, people thought Pluto was the 9th planet, but when it was reclassified as a dwarf planet, scientists started looking for a new Planet X. Did they have a thing about odd numbers or what? And guess what? Some really think there might be a big, icy planet hiding far, far away beyond Neptune. This mystery planet is often called if Planet 9 is into place with its gravity.
Okay, so they show all of these tracked chunks of space rock and whatever, all going around our sun in these different orbits that, you know, represent rasterization of particles being tugged by something. So then they say, oh, well, look here, there's a lack of smaller objects that we can observe slightly coming closer and farther away, and then their orbits when they get in close, and then theorize how they go around, and then they get better and better evidence, of course, through the years, as they have them all, the years they found them and verified how they're going around. Now, everything they learn about the solar system has to be applied directly to what we know about atom structures, because obviously it's one and the same. And if you don't believe that, then your brain is being scattered into one of the two extremes and ignoring the connections that are obvious. And because a scientist is supposed to take obvious connections and identify them and perform theoretical tests to see if they hold water.
If Planet 9 is real, it might be 5 to 10 times heavier than Earth.
Okay, so they go on and on. Powerful telescopes, these two from different decade eras, and comparing if something big has moved through the area.
Are infrared, about 23 years apart, which is helpful because it could be. Then they looked for matching blips in the sky that were seen by both Eros and Akari, but not in the exact same spot. That's because a real planet would have moved a little over 23 years.
Yeah, so they're saying this planet ride is moving so slow that the entire modern span of human history is wrapped into everything we know. The entire cycle of energy of our experience here on this planet and our wavelength that we understand seems to be pretty tied to these objects that are farther out in our solar system. As if they make a journey around the sun once, and it's like an entire concept of what humans can comprehend as history.
And they indeed found 13 possible matches that could be Planet 1 date and wasn't there 6 months earlier. But of course, there was a catch. Apparently, the old data isn't good enough to figure out the exact path of the potential planet. The thing is, most planets go around the sun in a flat-ish circle, but those faraway objects are tilted about 20 degrees. Planet 9 might be the reason why.
They're tilted about 20 degrees. So planet Earth, I mean, it varies as they claim it doesn't. Is, half of it's basically perfectly tilted, right? It's 45-degree angle would be an extreme tilt, so it's half of that. It's, they say the exact number, but obviously they're full of crap and it fluctuates, and hopefully they're getting an average at least.
Next,
So now everybody admits as of this month, all the experts have lined up like a planetary super eclipse, and they're admitting that, oh, it turns out that, yeah, just like it says in the Bible, yeah, we could have just, looked at that like a farmer's almanac of the stars and said, okay, at this point, everybody predicted the Earth based on its different stages of shape change and, its orbit, different factors about it, that it would reach a point where it'd become a top that is spinning as the ice on it gets too heavy on the poles. And there's all these different factors that were known, scientific hard data that could be generally hypothesized thousands of years ago. So now they admit the Earth's spinning like a top, and everything I was saying is correct. So now everything I'm saying is so obvious that only modern public school retard indoctrination with chemical foods for lunch could possibly make the human populace stupid enough to not understand these basic principles that have been known the whole time.
we'd probably find out why those tilted objects seem to point the same way.
So these videos are beginning to have the answers at the end so I can state them, because everybody's sick of the bullshit science academies of the old world controlling what we're supposed to know and believe.
Their orbits are grouped together in one direction. A big hit.
So if the Earth's, tilted at 22 degrees and these other objects in the solar system, a bunch of them, um, Pluto's tilted around that, however much. These other objects are all. So you got to ask yourself, like I said before, with the multiple angles of ionic time flow, potentiality around our sun, and the different sized frameworks in which it's playing out based on energy spectrums of gravitational forces. So you get farther out and you reach the conclusion that this planet
planet's gravity could be hurting them like sheep.
is really there, and
there are also another cool mystery. People have been wondering if there could be hidden planets times farther from the sun than Earth, and the other, it had a strange path around the sun that didn't seem to be affected by any of the known planets time ago, or another star that formed near ours. Then, scientists wonder if Sedna got pushed into its path by a hidden planet, maybe even something as big as Earth or bigger. Others thought maybe it was a star that flew by a long time ago, or another star that formed near ours.
Another star that formed near ours. Strange tilted objects super far away.
Who supported the Planet 9 theory believed that if it existed.
Now, everything's already named off of the concepts of what's going on and how it affects the body, back to, the Greeks and whoever who got to name everything, and it stuck. So we know that Neptune is obviously an inept tuning attempt at keeping this sun and the Earth that's functional for life, like, evolving. Uranus, I mean, come on, the jokes are endless. Everybody's anal spins into their structure of their spines is affected by the larger gravitational forces of the solar system and beyond. Saturn, okay. So it's a turning of compressed gases. So what does the SA on the beginning mean? I don't even care right now. You get the point. So Sedna, sedentary, Cessna planes flying around. Well, Sedna means it's not really, it's doing something that's, long term and can't be affected because of the large scale magnitude of the gravity.
It would move around the sun in a huge, stretched out circle called an elliptical orbit. It would be about 400 to 800 times farther from the sun than Earth is, about 13 to 26 times farther than Neptune. If it really had that kind of orbit, it would take around 10,000 to 20,000 years to go around the sun just once. As for the composition of planet...
Okay, here's the final thing.
As for the closest point, it would point towards Serpens. Ophiuchus' orbit, called aphelion, would be in the
They're admitting as they can't actually, it's as if there's resistance inside of them of built up bullshit. Like they can't just say, "Oh, everything's just, actually moving and interacting like cogs and everything has direct connections." Like everybody says that, but there's certain spots in their brain that it's like they're so infected, infarcted, and retarded, they can't actually grasp the simple truths anymore. So, farther planets out, just like atoms that are making up everything around us, the atoms everybody believed were taking electrons or neutrons or protons or whatever word you want to use and controlling them into orbits, with gravitational round slingshot maneuvers, just like our solar system. And so the theory has been this whole time that all atoms are clinging together and sharing direct electrons or whatever. Like one electron goes around, right? And then it hits the atomic pole of the other nearby center point of the other atom, and then it swings in a figure eight over to the other atom, but then there's atoms all around it, so then those electrons and whatnot are freely taking trips around until they hit the focal force marker of another, you know, central gravitational well, and then they get flung around some other way. So if we're dealing with the same principles here, then we can start to realize when we're dealing with our larger solar system that what if it's not that way? What if there is no connection? What if everybody's saying that everything's dead and not connected is wrong because it's not connected in the direct way everybody thought it was, sharing orbits? Instead, these farther planets become um like become an average of the push and pull of numerous stars that are nearby to our star, and they become like, neutrons, like neutralizing the gravitational forces and creating compromises so that the giant gravitational waves of all of space fluxing, while it would destroy itself, right? Like a giant engine, a giant kinetic engine, it should all warp, and bigger places that happen to be spinning more than others would smash in and crush with sheer force of weight of, mass and velocity. But that doesn't happen, does it? Everything's very alive. So this planet 9 through 100 that are out there at different angles, vectors, velocitudes are reaching a point where the sun's saying, okay, you're going around, and then another star is saying, okay, well, you're now a connection between me and the sun through not being a connection, being a buffer that on the larger scale of things works as a capacitor, director of energy fluxing. So, um,
Direction of the Taurus constellation.
it's just interesting because there's certain nearby stars and constellation shapes that are holding their angles and trajectories versus our viewpoint here from our solar system and are directly connected and are sharing these larger compromise planets where what happens when, a farther away neutron from Taurus or whatever they want to call it from some other star system gets out to the point where it's circling, you know, however much closer to these particles. Um, these particles, as we can assume, then their neutronic storage and buffering of gravitational forces, we can assume that they must be made out of materials that assist in this process. Um, there's infinite theories that have been worked out that are hard facts for thousands of years. So they all been cast aside and been declared as religion. Um, so just like there's a 2 to 3 orbit of Neptune and Pluto and its shape interacting with the sphere, with the like time space gravitational net that is the Pluto Neptune 2 to 3 tuning of the inner belt of, our solar system. So if that can happen, then we take what we know already and we apply it farther out and say, well, why couldn't there be orbits of other time space controlling planets for, these other solar systems, and they are in a slave orbit versus these other particles so that they have to pass around and obey certain speeds and placements based on every other solar system, every other star's particles going around. So, in this way, it's very hard to observe on the vast cosmos scale of atomics a moment where an actual direct full-sized planet would switch solar systems. I'm sure it happens, but its scarcity would lead you to believe that everything is vibrational mechanics and the cogs are the vibrations of the universe off of these spinning objects. The coglitude, I'll call it. And all of this, if you can't accept the truth and hold these truths in your head, then you have zero cognition and you can't grasp the energy of anything, and you start declaring false science that you can spin up in a empty gravity state in your laboratories, chemicals from proven toxic sources, and then trick the human body into panicking and trying to dodge the chemicals you put in it and forcing it to move in an excited state, much like they're using uranium from human urine to excite hydrogen peroxide and produce heat for electricity. The dirtiest possible way. So, my declaration is that the dirty science of the 1900s, all the way back for 1,000 years before, that led to the dirty industrial revolution, they just kept taking what was true science, the dirty dogs, and they turned it into an economy of death on purpose. so that they know what all the science is, they know what all the materials do, and then they say, we're buttheads. What can we do different from this whole system that isn't part of the energy pattern? How can we make our own energy and be gods of our own design and death? And that's all there is to it. So, with these obvious findings, we know that everything is in a state of flux and how important it is to have an entire net of healthy super planets going around your solar system.